There's a version of success nobody prepares you for. It's not the work. It's not even the possibility that you'll fail. It's that you become exactly what you're trying to become. And the people whose love you still want aren't going to recognize you there. And now the love starts being questioned. So they're not always going to say, I wish he'd stayed small. They're going to say, who does he think he is now? Are you sure this is going to work? Those sorts of things. And if you want their approval bad enough, you could spend years making your ambition small enough to remain recognizable. So I had a conversation with an entrepreneur recently who is building something that is clearly on the rise, right? Higher top line revenue, new hires, bigger team, bigger just expansion on all fronts, right? Yet when we talked about the word success, he kind of recoiled and pulled back. And it was related to this, in that he wasn't he wasn't upset because it wasn't working out. He was upset because it was. And he could see that people saw him differently. And he was in this transition period about the people who want him to remain small were becoming uncomfortable. Yet he could no longer remain in this realm where he remained small. And the fear with this is that, do we have to say goodbye to the people we care about, whose love we need, because they can't recognize where we're going? And that's what we're going to talk about today. A lot of ambitious people are not afraid of the work, and they're really not even afraid of failure. They're afraid of what becoming successful is going to cost, which is to say they're afraid of being loved less by the people who still matter to them. See, becoming yourself sounds freeing when you say it quickly, and it's this motivational posters type stuff of the art of becoming. And it is freeing, but it's also really freaking expensive, because the more you grow and the more honest you become in terms of hitting that level of identity, the less explainable you're going to be to people who are comfortable with where you're currently at or where you were previously at as you're transitioning into this next level of identity. And that's really difficult for those people because they put you into this kind of container, this box. They see you in a certain way and they think, oh, why are they behaving this way now? That's different to me. It makes them uncomfortable. And you realize you are the outlier. The majority of people in life are doing whatever they can to remain comfortable, or at least not seek the utmost discomfort. Whereas you, sitting there right now, you know that the way to actually grow to your level, to hit your potential, is by getting more uncomfortable more often. So why is it difficult? Why do we kind of waffle back and forth when it comes to the actual relationships we have? Why are we even contemplating remaining small to keep everyone else around us comfortable? And the most important thing with this is that not everybody who struggles with your growth is an enemy. Just because they don't understand it doesn't mean that they get to be the author, doesn't mean that they get to more or less instruct how you grow, how far you grow. So what we're really here to do today is understand why your ambition would make them uncomfortable and how to just accept that level of discomfort, that social cost, without feeling like you need to villainize or cut these people off. What's one way this manifests? Because some people will openly doubt you and just be like, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. But the people you love, the people you truly care about, often do it more subtly, right? So you're growing the business or you're reaching the new level, you have a relationship with your ambition and you understand I'm continuing. The subtle way people are going to say is, oh, wow, right? Like it might be as simple as that. Oh, wow. And you can kind of tell just in their tone of voice. Or they might be a little bit more direct and smirk a little bit. Or they might kind of ask questions like, are you sure? And all that sort of stuff. They might even go to the point of saying like they kind of miss the old version of you, right? This happens a lot in family, high school friends, people who you've had relationships with for over 10 years and that sort of stuff, who never shared your level of ambition. And that doesn't mean you're better or worse than them. It just means it's different, right? But the result of this subtlety is you still care about these people, obviously. And so what does that actually manifest for you is it turns you into shrinking in their presence, right? You tell them less. You don't give as much explicit detail about what you're truly working on, you kind of withhold a little bit of the success you're experiencing because you know they might react negatively. Say you worked really hard and you are able to buy this amazing house or have this nice car or whatever, and that just because other people can't help themselves sparks a bit of resentment. And so you just try and not be so flashy about that, which is its own problem because you're shrinking in the presence of other people, kind of getting along to go along. So, one of the biggest social costs of ambition and becoming yourself is not that you lose people. It's that you shrink that version of yourself in their presence because you are a caring human being and you don't want to make them uncomfortable. And so you don't get to be fully yourself. And the person who suffers in that moment is not them, it's actually you because you're withholding, right? Now, there are people who will take this to the opposite degree. And sometimes, they will say, well, I'm becoming myself and I don't want anyone to stand in my way, and fair enough. But it's a really thin line. It's shades of gray to where they do transition, kind of overcorrecting the car too much and turn into arrogance, or they do think they're better than somebody else. Somebody once told me, you don't get to the top by stepping on other people's throats. And so when you start putting people down as they're all detractors from your ability to hit your next level, that's not what I'm talking about here, right? There has to be this way to where you don't have to shrink yourself with people you love, but also not like villainize them to be totally yourself. We're looking for that middle ground. Incredibly hard to find, but definitely worthwhile to look for. This one I personally struggle with is that becoming yourself doesn't always happen from being shrunk from the people from your past, those 10 plus year relationships, like I said. Sometimes it happens from people in the future as well. As I left my agency after almost a decade of building it to global top 1000 and all that kind of stuff, to where, it was this, I call it the impressive tree, right? You can see it from the highway. It casts a lot of shade. It looks really cool. But for me, the fruit tasted off, right? And it doesn't really matter how impressive your tree is if you want to taste the fruit, that's why they literally say the fruits of your labors, and you don't like the taste of it, right? But once I finally went out on my own and started coaching, I felt completely new, that I didn't really understand how to run a coaching business. I just knew I had a lot of value to give in the room one-on-one with someone. That's where my talent lies. But in terms of creating that business, marketing that business, positioning that business, I just felt completely inept, even though I had over a decade of marketing. It just felt different. And so I was pulling authority from ahead. I was looking at these really big names, and I paid several of them, people who were making impressive numbers and all that sort of stuff as coaches or as high level operators. And by doing that, I completely ignored one of the most important aspects, is that you need to make it yours, right? This level of success and kind of stepping into the identity that matters is knowing who you are, most of all, right? And so when we think about people in our current life or our past, as we're trying to step into that new level, we want support, right? And they're the ones who are saying, no, you're going too far. You're making me uncomfortable, right? Like in the UK, they call it tall poppy syndrome. Is, hey, be successful, but don't stand up too much because now you're being arrogant, right? And that's really hard socially to do. But you can also do that to yourself, and that's what I was doing in my first year of business. Is I was like, I don't trust myself enough to step into this identity without outsourcing my knowledge and education and my belief and all that sort of stuff. And there's a difference between getting educated and then thinking it will just solve all your problems, right? A lot of people, and I experienced this in the marketing world as well, is when they sign the contract, they think that's the job done, right? I signed the thing, I invested in myself, I invested in my business, whatever it is, I did the hard thing. And the people who have been in this game for a long time and And I even knew that, but I forgot about it when I stepped into, oh, I don't know enough about coaching. Is no, making the first decision is just that. It's the first decision. The real work begins after that. And so I was just trusting people with big audiences, big numbers, and all that sort of stuff. And they are successful and they're great human beings. They had no fault in me kind of shrinking myself, but I was giving them more credit than they needed. And to translate that more, I was giving myself less than I should have had, right? Because what did I have in the past? A bunch of evidence of saying, even if you don't know, you can figure it out. When you lean on your own personal point of view, your taste, your conviction, the things you value and care about, it might be messy, but you will always get to the other side of that. And it's just something a lot of people don't talk about that I personally experience is you can shrink yourself by stepping into a new level. I was stepping into a new level, a totally new discipline, and thinking I didn't have the tools to be successful there. And so I shrunk my own authority, my own belief in myself, and replaced it with other people's. And that was a really uncertain and foggy time for me because I just kept trying to attach different tactics and different ideologies when really I had the answer inside of me all along. So the point with that is becoming yourself is really about deciding whose voice you give authority to, right? Coaching and courses and books and information and all that sort of stuff. You don't want to be uncoachable. You don't want to stop learning. You want those things to inform you, but you don't want those things to make the decision for you. That's how a lot of people end up building businesses that are incredibly successful. But once they start tasting the fruit, that business owner or founder or whatever, they're like, oh, wow, this isn't the life I wanted, right? Because it's very easy to say, that looks good, I'll go for that, and then not think far enough ahead and say, was this what I wanted to begin with? So basically, have these things inform you. You don't want them to replace your own read, your own decision making, your own discernment. Here's the sad part, and I talk about this with clients a lot, is just that some people won't want to come with you. And I'll give you an example, right? Is a lot of times, especially when you're a business owner and you get people in the beginning, and same with clients as well, right? Whether it's staff or clients, in the beginning, what do? You hire people who are less experienced or just not perfect fits that you think you can mold, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, with clients, you sell clients on lower price points because you're just starting out, and then as you get better, obviously your price goes up, but you honor that price for the client. And you realize over time, after doing this a long time, somewhere typically in years 2 to 3, I would say 3 is more common with my clients, that they're like, oh shit, like I need to get to this next level, but this client is still taking 20 hours a month of my time or whatever, or I'm still double checking this employee's work and that kind of stuff. And they're just, it's going to be really hard to get them to the next level. And the thing that people just don't talk about is that not everyone's going to want to come with you. They're just not. People people are really good, if you're paying attention and observing, of telling you where their level is, right? So that employee you hired at the beginning in year 1, come year 3, where your business is doing this, that employee might be like, no, I'm all this resistance, all these things I keep kind of screwing up. Like, of course, they're not saying this outright, but all these things are signals to say, I've reached my level. I don't want to go with you. And so one of the most unproductive things you can do with an employee is say, you should be coming with us to this level, when they're clearly, like, it in your gut that they've reached their level, right? And sometimes that does mean letting them go. I've had to do it several times. A lot of my clients end up doing it because we let the truth win, right? And the truth does not mean comfort. The truth means discomfort a lot of the times. But when the right decision is the right decision, it needs to be made. Otherwise, you're accepting less than. But sometimes you don't have to let them go. Sometimes, hey, you can just stay at this level and we can keep you here. And then eyeing up talent or eyeing up the next hire or whatever it may be to help you get to that next level, right? It's not always scorched earth all the time. Same thing with clients, is sometimes that conversation just needs to happen to say, this is where we're going. And I always like to have an actual conversation with the client themselves rather than send an email, right? It takes courage to do this thing. This is where we're going. This is what you've been able to benefit from. There needs to be some alterations. Now, I want to tell you ahead of time. I want to give you, 30, 60 days, whatever it may be, and then let them decide. Treat them as a human being, right? But the reality is simple. Not everybody's going to want to come with you. And so the longer you spend trying to make little tiny tweaks to jam them into the next level that you're headed to, they're still going to be even more uncomfortable there. And so that's where entrepreneurship becomes incredibly lonely. Sometimes when you go to the next level, you don't know who's coming with you. It might just be you. The other side of this is the people who do want to come with you. Those are the rare people. Like, the clearest illustration for me is my wife. No matter when I was completely poor to successful, to having no freaking clue what I wanted to do, to now having just absolute total conviction, clarity, like, this is exactly what I'm meant to do. Every moment I'm living is the exact moment I'm supposed to be in. And just respecting those levels, right? And to be a cheerleader for that, but not always in active support all the time. That type of person is rare for a reason, right? They're not just blindly saying, do whatever you want. They'll challenge you, right? When you sound like you're saying full of shit stuff, they will tell you it's full of shit. But they also don't need 10 points in the plan to give you their support or not, right? These are people who just trust you implicitly and you trust them implicitly, right? I kind of think of this person as, would they give the eulogy at my funeral? You're going to live a life. We're all going to die. Who would be the person that you would actually want to put the footnote on your life to summarize what you were about, what you cared about? That's the person who's going to come with you to multiple levels, right? And like I said, with my wife, from having no clue and having $5 to my name to now we have 3 kids and a lovely home and all those sorts of things. As I'm building this business, she's come with me every step of the way. She hasn't always been in support of every individual thing. She's questioned a lot of things, but never have I been like, oh, I need to shrink myself for her, or I need to withhold information for her, right? Those people are incredibly rare. And if you don't have that person yet, it doesn't mean you're broken. There's this concept of, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. It's the same thing with personal relationships. When you're ready, the right person who can come up with you on these levels will appear, and you'll know it. And that's the final thing with this person. One of the easiest ways to know it is that you can tell they're not threatened with your evolution, with your growth, right? The rarest, most amazing people to keep in your life is not someone who gets really uncomfortable as you grow and compares a lot. Like, these people are not looking around everyone else and saying, well, they have this, so I don't, or they're further ahead and I'm behind. No, they understand you're on your own journey. Everyone grows at a different rate. Everyone has different values and ambitions, and they can adapt with you as you learn, as you grow, and they're not threatened by it. And so this is the social cost of becoming yourself. And I wrote something that I think just kind of summarizes the whole thing. When you are becoming yourself, you may stop being easy to explain. You may stop being the person old rooms knew what to do with. You may make decisions people cannot understand because they are not the ones who have to live inside the life attached to them. You may have to accept that someone you love prefers the smaller version of you, and you may have to grieve that without turning them into a villain. Not everybody is going to want to come with you. You don't need to abandon people in order to stop abandoning yourself. Love people, have interest in them, give them space, give them the ability to make mistakes. So love people, listen deeply, give them the space, allow them time to understand this transition that you are making. But you don't need to make yourself smaller to keep these people, because eventually, in the end, we have to decide what hurts more. did I not become myself so I could get along to go along and have people not be super uncomfortable in my presence? Or did I have enough conviction that I did my best to become myself and have no regrets, to live a life true to yourself versus what others expect of you? So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is actually a part of a larger series that I wrote called The Curse of Knowing How to Win. And it's just my take on the unspoken things about if you're a highly capable person, you look really impressive on paper. Like I said, you grow that tree super tall, impressive from the highway, casts a lot of great shade, but the fruit tastes a bit off, right? And that really starts at the root. And so if you want to dive into that series, there's a link down below. It's just an email series you can binge in minutes. If not, thanks for watching. And if anything I said in terms of what you feel internally is something you'd want to talk with me personally about, is what I do all day, every day with clients one-on-one. So there's a link down below where you can learn a little bit more about that as well. It's just a video called The Conviction Room and go from there. So thanks so much for watching. It's been a pleasure to yap at you today, and we will see you in the next one.